Welcome to It's All Recruiting, the show that looks at everything through the lens of recruiting. I'm your host, Jim Stroud.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. Welcome to another exciting, action-packed episode of this podcast, which is called, of course, you know it, It's All Recruiting. I'm your host with the most, Jim Stroud. Yay! Okay. Enough of that. So, I was fortunate enough to speak at a certain conference in California, and I met some really nice people, and we were talking about innovation. You know, that's one of my favorite topics. So, as we were discussing innovation as it pertains to recruiting, and discussing different case studies and things we've heard about that other companies are doing out there to attract and recruit certain individuals, we sort of struck up a bit of a kinship because we both had a love for case studies of innovative recruiting tactics and so forth. And I said, hey, you know what? You should come on my podcast and talk about this stuff because I know my listeners would really like to hear from you and hear us banter back and forth about this type of thing. So I invited my new friend on the podcast. He's here with us now. So, new friend, will you introduce yourself and tell us who you are?
Thank you so much for having me, Jim. It's great to be here, and I hope your audience can understand the Australian accent. I don't know how many podcast guests you've had with this accent. My name is Paul Slazak, and as Jim said, we met at a talent acquisition conference here in San Francisco a few weeks ago. I was there representing my company. I'm one of the co-founders with Recruit Loop, and we have a marketplace of recruiters who are doing things differently and innovatively, which is why I was there. And when Jim did his outstanding presentation on sourcing strategies, I just went straight up to him and said, we need to chat. So I'm here today. So thanks for having me again.
Well, thank you for those kind words. I feel like it's $20 I owe you.
Aussie dollars or US dollars? Anyway, let's move on.
Checks in the mail. So, actually, let me ask you this really quickly because I want to make sure I get a good understanding. Recruit Loop, you mentioned. What exactly is it and what does it do, just so I can have a good understanding of it?
Yeah, sure. So we are a marketplace. We have a marketplace of independent recruiters. So we're not an agency. It's a marketplace of independent professionals, and the recruiters are spread right around the world. And what they're doing differently is working with organizations but billing purely by the hour. So it's not the traditional fee based on a candidate's salary. We've turned recruitment into a professional service like law or accounting, where recruiters are paid for every hour they work, which means that an organization can buy a recruiter's time for as much or as little of the recruitment process as they want or need.
It's sort of, would it be fair to say it's sort of like the Uber of recruiting?
Thank you. Would you like to say that again, Jim? Yes, it is.
The Uber of recruiting, Recruit Loop. Very cool. That's good to know. It seems like there's an Uber for everything that's out there. Really interesting. This kind of world we're living in right now. I think it's really a job seeker's market nowadays. Wouldn't you say? I mean,
absolutely.
So many.
I've been in this game for 21 years this year, and you've seen years that go candidate rich, candidate poor, client rich, client poor. But the way that the industry has changed in the last 2 decades, especially from this topic that I know means so much to you from sourcing, is pretty remarkable. When I remember, for me, looking for candidates in 1994 was literally an ad in a paper or a magazine, or literally just the headhunt, call after call. And I think anyone who hears that now, who's accustomed to what's out there, would probably think, how on earth did you even do it back then? But it was possible.
Back in my day, we put jobs in newspapers. You young whippersnappers.
We had to dictate job ads to someone in a call center who published it on a Saturday morning. Absolutely.
Wow. And nowadays, it's like you have to do all these really clever things just to get people's attention to apply. You know, this is one company, which I'm sure everybody's heard of listening, IKEA, and they did something really, really clever I think I mentioned this to you. They did something really clever in recruiting people. What they did
Absolutely.
when people ordered something from IKEA, what IKEA did was they put a flyer inside of the different packages. And so when people opened up their packages and got their IKEA products, there's this flyer in there that said career instructions. And it basically says, assemble your career here at IKEA, and had little instructions on how to put a job together. Really cute. And I thought, really interesting, because the long story short of that is by putting that flyer inside of the boxes of the items that people purchase, they were able to attract 4,285 applications. And then out of that 4,285 applications, they had about 280 hires, And I thought it was really cool because when they did that, by putting that flyer in the box, it does not really cost anything. I mean, that's like a really, really minimal cost. But they're also hitting their customers. So these are people who are already familiar with the IKEA brand, So it's like how better to communicate to people who already have an association with your brand cheaply and easily. What do you think of that?
I think I remember when you mentioned that, I thought it's genius, and yet then I flashed back to 20 years ago when I was doing some volume recruiting for a bank in Australia, and I said to them, why don't you just say on the bottom of all the credit card statements that the call centres are actually looking for staff to work in the new call centre in Australia? And I got a very strange look from the HR person saying, why would we do that? And I said, because you've got 50,000 credit card customers in Australia that get this piece of paper every month. Talk to them. And I was stared at like I'd just, spoken Swahili running around a campfire or something. But they said no. And yet what you've just said IKEA's done is exactly the same thing. There's a piece of paper going in a box anyway. Put something more on it. There's a statement going out to 50,000 credit card holders. Tell them that there are vacancies in the contact centre. It's different. People read right to the bottom because that's how much they owe. And right under that it says, are you looking for a job? Maybe they are.
That kind of logic, you can apply that to so many different things. You could put on when next time you go to a supermarket and you're buying groceries, at the bottom of the receipt could be now hiring. Go to this link, or when you go to an ATM and you're taking money out, you can say, hey, you could work here and have put money in or something.
Yeah, exactly. Balance low, salary in, exactly.
Would it I don't know, would this be kind of cool or creepy, but if your bank account is consistently low, then you start getting job advertisements from the bank. You need more money.
What you've said here is, it's so true, because a lot of people, I'm sure, who are listening to this regularly and who follow you and who've read your books and stuff, they probably think that the sourcing needs to be through these mysterious private investigator types of technology that are out there to find the passives. But it isn't. You can do something so in your face that is creative that could still really, really attract passive candidates who don't necessarily get shoulder tapped on LinkedIn or anything like that, but they're literally opening a stool that they need to build for their daughter's bedroom. And then there's instructions on getting a new job. I think it just makes so much sense. And if companies would be willing to sort of go out on a limb and not be so stuck up and proper and professional and just be innovative and show that they've got a personality, I think there'd be so much more employer brand put out there from, as you said, it's the customer that is looking at some of this most of the time.
Exactly. I'm thinking about something that Flickr did. Flickr, of course, being the photo sharing site that Yahoo owns. They did something really clever, and they were looking for software developers. They posted a link to their job, to their career section inside of the source code of their website. So whenever someone went to Flickr.com and they were looking at the site through some sort of testing software, they will see a link in there inside the computer code. If you're reading this, we're hiring. Now, no one else would see that, but software developers or software testers, because they're the ones who will be using this tool and looking inside of that code, which is perfect. And it didn't cost anything to put that inside the code. It was just like, boom, there it is.
Yeah.
So I thought that was like, wow. What do you think of things like that?
Well, again, for a specific niche, that's just genius because, like you've said, only someone who is looking through that lens, so to speak, would have actually found that, and they wouldn't have then been inundated with the unnecessary applications because no one else would have even known that existed. And for someone to find that, they probably know the language that product is speaking from a code perspective, and they're probably not going to get 100 applications, but might only get 5 or 10, but they could probably all get an interview and all do the job. So talk about directly targeting the absolute ideal candidate.
Hmm. You know, being really clever, I think, can really offset paying a lot of money for hiring a lot of people. I'm thinking something else that was really clever was this company, I think it was called Schultz and Friends. They were trying to recruit some creative types from different ad agencies. So they ordered all these pizzas, and on top of the pizzas were QR codes made out of spaghetti sauce, you know. And so they shipped these pizzas off to different offices. And so when people opened up the box and they saw this QR code on top of their pizza, you know, made out of spaghetti sauce, they're like, man, that's really interesting. I wonder if that works. And so they scanned it, and what do you know? It went to a job description. And long story short, this company had 12 job interviews and hired 2 people just by sending out some pizzas. I thought, man, that's interesting.
That's brilliant. I mean, as long as the candidates weren't too hungry and ravaged before anyone realized that it was a QR code. But again, the right audience, because somebody else who isn't from a digital agency or who wouldn't know what the QR code is, will go, oh, there's an interesting topping for the pizza, let's just eat. But the right person went, ooh, this looks familiar, let's see what it is. And again, it's not a $1,000 something, it's not a $10,000 advertisement in some prestigious newspaper, it's some cheese topping. It's so clever, and it can be done so targeted. As you've just said, these three brands. One is a global, huge brand that people know about, so they could target 100,000 people straight away. A pizza delivery for a couple of companies where the ideal candidate might be working. Again, very, very hyper-targeted, very niche. And I remember you also mentioned something, Jim, at that conference the other week where it was, again, a software job where I think it was some very clever mathematical code or something, and if you worked it out, it was the phone number to a hiring manager or to a talent acquisition person, and only people who could do this genius mathematical equation got the number as the outcome and could dial it. And again, even if 3 people rang it, they all were qualified.
Yep, that was McKinsey and Company. They did that. They made these flyers. They made these little tear sheets at the bottom of the flyer, and it was a mathematical code. And as you said, once they solved the code, they had a phone number where they can call a recruiter and get the job. So yeah, it doesn't take a lot of money.
What would you? I mean, if a McKinsey is doing this, I mean, it's brilliant. What would you say to people listening and your audience, that whether they're an internal recruiter or a recruitment consultant, if there's sort of this like prestigious brand behind them or something that's a little bit stifled, or and the teams internally aren't willing to be creative and they're almost forced down this very traditional sourcing path. Well, let's use LinkedIn for this, or let's see what we can do and map the market and make some phone calls. How do you think you can convince a brand to go out on a limb and do something different that people will remember, maybe share, maybe tweet about, talk about, post on Facebook to get the message out there? How do you convince people that you don't have to be uber traditional?
A couple of ways. One is show them different case studies and examples of what everyone else is doing. So these companies are doing, and they're making hires. How come we aren't doing it? So that kind of approach could work. Another more conservative approach is to take advantage of the different tools you already have at your disposal, which are already free. 2 examples of that, one being LinkedIn. One thing that I had advised someone on recently was that I let them know or show them that on LinkedIn you can embed video on your LinkedIn profile. So I said, how cool would it be if you had a video of yourself saying, hi, I'm John Doe and I'm recruiting for X. This is a great place to work. reach out to me on LinkedIn, and that's embedded on their LinkedIn profile, which you can do. If you're more video shy, you can post a PowerPoint presentation. So why not post a PowerPoint presentation on your LinkedIn profile saying how great and wonderful it is to work at your company. These are the different opportunities that I'm presently recruiting for. People have short attention spans these days, and they would appreciate if they could just look and see a picture, get the message, and then go on. With LinkedIn, you can, of course, post different pictures, which will intrigue people to study your profile a bit further. And speaking of pictures, there's also this company called JobGram. And you get to it by going to Get a Jobgram or Get Jobgram. I forget what. I think it's getjobgram.com. And what they do, which is really kind of clever, they turn job descriptions into infographics. And so you can look at the site, getjobgram.com, and you'll see infographics of different job descriptions. And again, it speaks to that short attention span. People will look at a picture, immediately get what it's about, and then they'll apply. So I thought it was very
that's
clever.
Something that a recruitment consultant, like an agency consultant or an independent recruiter, could use, not just somebody working as an internal recruiter within an organization. That's fantastic. That's brilliant.
And that's the kind of thing that could be shared quite a bit over social media, Pinterest, Twitter, anywhere where photos are dominant. So I think it's just a matter of making, maybe baby steps, taking a little step here, a little step there, do things that don't cost any money so you can't get any pushback. I think a lot of times people are thinking, I would never get the budget to do some wild and crazy thing. I said, well, we've given several examples already of things you can do rather cheaply or pretty much free to get results. Another example I can cite too, which is totally free, and got a lot of good results. There's a company called Hootsuite, and they are a social media company. And one thing they did was they used this tool called Periscope. Periscope is a company that is owned by Twitter, and it allows you to live stream video. So what they did was they coordinated with several of their locations. And let's say from 12 to 1, they had someone at their headquarters turn on their Periscope app and start live streaming, saying, hello, this is so-and-so from Hootsuite, and this is my office, and this is our cafeteria, and these are our happy workers, And they walked around and gave a virtual tour of their location. They did it for 10, 15 minutes talking about how great it was to work there, and also answering the questions of people who happened to show up and check out that particular broadcast. And when they were done, they hung up from that location, and then another location, another city, also started periscoping, and they started talking about how great and wonderful it was to work at their location and the people that are there and the different opportunities they had available. Long story short, they gave a virtual tour of all their locations around the world, actually, because they were more than just here in America. So they had, I don't remember the stats right off, but I think it was like, actually, let me think here. Yeah, I think it was like 5,000 people or so had seen what it was like to work at their different locations all around the world, and they were able to answer questions. So they gave passive candidates virtual tours and answered questions in real time about what it's like to work there and if they had opportunities available, all for free.
And again, it's talking to the people who are using Hootsuite who probably love the brand already, to then get told, hey, we're actually looking for people here.
Exactly.
It's not casting the net wide and hoping that something will stick, but these people are users and fans already of a product, and you're talking directly to them, and they're seeing something, and they can then imagine themselves in the seat, in the office, in the cafeteria.
And when you use Periscope, when you turn it on, an announcement goes out to everybody who's following you on Twitter. So if you may want to build up a good Twitter audience first. But as you do that, people will see it, and you ask them to retweet it, and they'll spread the message out that way as well. But again, it doesn't cost anything. It just took a little time to coordinate all the different locations and when they were going to do it. And every time they did, everybody who followed them on Twitter saw it, and then people shared it, retweeted it, and so on.
I mean, how much do you think plays here around the importance of the employer brand, that all of these have been very, very cleverly crafted advertisements, but they then play on the brand? I mean, Hootsuite to show what's happening inside, IKEA to play on, well, you build a TV unit, we can build your career. Do you think that the sourcing strategy is relying on the brand in these, and how important is the employer brand in these innovative sourcing strategies?
I think it's important to the standpoint of you'll have people who have an interest and who are very curious about the brand. So is that angle. But I think the other angle is that you're also building the brand at the same time. Because people who might not even be aware of your company will say, oh, that's really interesting what they're doing. That's really cutting edge. Or I just never heard of them. Let me check it out. Oh, wow, I've learned something new. Maybe when I consider an opportunity, I'll think about this company, a company I never heard about before, but because I saw something really clever or interesting on Periscope, then I'm going to consider them. So it's a bit of both.
I'm sorry if you can hear a dog barking. I'm in a sound system office, but there is a dog barking right outside. Sorry about that. And with all of that, I mean, you'd know, I mean, in the role that you play now with Randstad and the roles you've had before, at what point then do you leave the sourcing strategy aside and go in and build the person-to-person relationship with the candidate? I mean, if you've got, you mentioned these big numbers of IKEA applications, did they then drive through to assessment centres? Did they have people then phone screening the best of the best, or with the QR code on the pizza box? When does someone then step in to say, let me now take you through this and get you across the line? Because sourcing is one thing, but then actually hooking them over and engaging them and building that trust. When does that piece actually happen in all of these innovative ways?
Sure. I wish I could say what happened specifically with each particular case, what happened with that, but I don't know. But how I would imagine it is, once the leads start pouring in, that the very first thing will be to track it all. And say, okay, we tried the pizza thing, and we received so many applications when that happened. We put the flyer in the box on these orders on this day, and we started getting more applications that way. So I think tracking all of this is paramount. Then comes the qualification part. Speaking to the people who are applying, getting that first contact really quickly, striking while the iron is hot, getting a feel for who they are and what they want to do. I think a lot of recruiters, they are so numbers driven because they have so many recs they have to fill in such a short period of time. And a lot of their mindset seems to be, I have this job, I think you're perfect for it, so go ahead and take this job. Why haven't you taken my job yet? As opposed to saying, hey, who are you? What do you want to? Who do you want to be when you grow up? Tell me what you want. Let me build a relationship with you so that when I call you in the future, you know that I'm a different recruiter from all the others because I first took the time to learn who you are and what you actually want, as opposed to throwing something against the wall and hoping it will stick. Now, once I have that kind of connection with the recruiter, with that candidate, it does a couple of things. One, it keeps the communication lines open, so when I contact them in the future, they'll respond. And two, it gives me access to their contacts because there are people out there who are really good at what they do who don't want to put their profile on LinkedIn because they know they'll get deluged with responses. So the only way I could get to those type of folks is having a good relation with the people I can contact because they'll connect me with those people.
Yeah. I've always used the phrase when I've been training thousands of recruiters that you can initiate the spark online or in the innovative sourcing way, but you then build the trust and you build the relationship offline. And I think you've alluded to like building this community that you can then come back to and send broadcasts out to and really build that sort of trusted advisor position, that when you do have something right for them or you do approach them, they know that you're not just one of 25,000 other recruiters trawling LinkedIn today, but you've spoken to them before and you've really understood who they are based on where they came from and what they're wanting. I think what you've said is absolutely spot on.
Thank you. And I also would add to that, what I think agency recruiters do really well, and I think corporate recruiters don't do as much, although I think they should, is that they'll take the extra step to build up a better candidate engagement experience in the future. And what I mean by that is if I talk to someone from company X and I'll say, okay, thanks for reaching out to me. Why are you looking right now, may I ask? And they'll say, oh, I don't like the blue carpet here. The blue carpet is terrible, right? So I will make a note inside of the ATS that people at company X hate blue carpeting. And people at company X who hate blue carpeting and they don't like working in a particular group because the manager there is rubbish for whatever reason, right? Mm-hmm. I put that into the ATS. So then the next time I or one of my coworkers speak to somebody from company X, they'll have a little secret agent dossier that says, okay, when you talk to somebody from company X, say something about how wonderful our red carpet is because they hate blue carpeting over there, you know? Yeah. And don't talk and try to get recruiting more people out of this particular group because everybody's complaining about a certain group, but they got the right skills that we need, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So that's an extra step. I think agency recruiters do that from the standpoint of, especially some of the old school recruiters. They'll take note of who the candidates' children's names are, who their favorite sports teams are, that kind of thing, and they'll do it on a personal level. But I don't think they always think to do it on a company level from the standpoint of what people don't like about working at a particular company or like about a particular company. So that's the extra step I would add in.
Love it.
It seems like...
I think I was going to say what you've talked about now, I'm so glad that even someone who's so prolific in this sourcing space is still bringing it back to old school traits of building credibility, building relationships, taking things offline, having conversations, making notes. It's just music to my ears because I've been banging this drum for a long time. And people, when I used to start training, and I'd say when I started doing this, there was no internet. And then usually the audience, just the jaws hit the floor and they think, well, how on earth did you do stuff? But now with all of this amazing technology, you can still bring in the old school approach and you can just do it even better. I'm just so glad that you've actually publicly said you can have all this amazing sourcing innovation, but you can still bring it back to building the trust and building the credibility. Thank you.
You know, it's fine. You know, it's sort of like everything old has become new again. There are, if someone were to do a search on Google for on interpersonal and millennials, which is something that I've done just now, they'll see some of what I'm about to say about how millennials are losing their interpersonal skills because they're so, so keyed into machines, texting and looking at computer screens all day. They're losing the art or the skill of just looking someone in the eye and carrying on a conversation with them, When I did a search just now in Google, I typed in the words interpersonal and millennials, and I see in the results things like millennials are losing social skills, and I see why millennials can't communicate, and millennials frustrate HR execs, and which is really interesting to me because millennials making up half of the workforce, and it tells me that the baby boomer generation that is retiring, how valuable they are, how valuable a lot of their skills are because they are able to look people in the eye and talk to them and have some bit of empathy and not be as narcissistic as some millennials, can't say all, but some millennials may be, And I think that's going to make a lot of baby boomers or intrigue a lot of baby boomers to return to the workforce from the standpoint of being consultants because that crucial skill is missing and they have it. Just a thought. It's my own little rant.
And so do the Gen Xers. The Generation X, we know how to look people in the eye as well.
That's right. That's right. Wow, the time is flown by there. Wow, how can people get in contact with you? Let me do that. Let me get you to plug your company there. If people wanted to reach out to you and learn more.
If anyone wants to learn more about what we do, it's recruitloop.com, and I'm one of the co-founders. It's Paul at recruitloop.com, and I talk to anybody about anything, anytime. So check us out. But I've really, really enjoyed talking to you, Jim. Thank you for having me on your podcast.
Oh, thank you, sir. And also for those listening, I will add a link to Recruit Loop inside the podcast description. So just in case you didn't get a chance to write it down, just check the description. It'll be there. All right. So until next time, bye-bye.
See you later.
Thank you so much for listening. If you were not there, then I would be here talking to myself. So thank you for that. If you would, check out the links in the podcast description because they are there for you. Finally, if you love what you heard, hate what you heard, or not quite sure what you just heard, I want to know about it. Connect with me on Twitter at Jim Stroud, or LinkedIn, or Google+, or pretty much anywhere you find me online. I'm everywhere. Okay, enough of that. Until next time, one last word spoken 3 times to my people at Randstad Sourceright. Love, love, love.